Hello, good
Neither.
afternoon. Corey. I'm sitting here with Corey, my good friend, Corey Finnie. Corey, can you tell us a little bit about you?
A little bit about me. My
Yeah.
goodness. Where in the world would I start?
Well,
Born and raised in Canada and born in Saskatchewan, spent from 11 to 36 in Alberta, went down to the US for 15 years, and then retreated back to Canada in my old age to return to my friends and spend some time amongst my loved ones in the great Canadian North during the summer. I'm a digital nomad. I travel most of the winter. Got six kids. Well, actually, a seventh with my would-be adopted son that came into our life when he was 19, so we didn't adopt him, but he's one of our kids. So four of my kids are in the U.S., three are in Canada, three are married with grandchildren. So we travel a lot in the winter to visit them. Uh, when we left California in COVID, I said, I want to be a digital nomad. I'm not dragging this garbage back. So we sold everything we had for the most part. If it doesn't fit in our truck, we don't own it. And we hang out with family and friends when we're in Canada, and then our kids when we're in the US, living a nomadic lifestyle for now. My wife's getting a little bit nesty and wants a home base, but I keep pushing her back. Right now, we're up with her family in northern Alberta. Um, they're quite a bit older, so they need a little help, and so we're up here helping them. So it works out for us. I work completely remotely. I sell solar, and you can see here, I have a solar business. I sell solar to U.S. homeowners and expanding into the Canadian market here this winter. I've known Linda for many years. She's been a dear friend, and her daughter Robin since Robin was chasing boys in the school ground. So yeah, I've been involved with their family. Linda's been a key part of my business. Has always been there for me in accounting. Came she went so far, and don't ever expect this as your accountant, but she'd go so far as to travel down to California to help me clean up my books and pretend it's a vacation, but really I worked her so hard. I'm not sure she got much vacation. We did go to the beach,
we did go,
but
always went to the beach, even when there was no one else at the beach but us crazy Canadians.
yeah, well, when you brought the snow that one winter in 2014 and you come to visit and Marietta has never had snow and my kids are out tobogganing when you pull up in your car, I thought that was pretty unique.
Yeah, that was one cold Rose Bowl parade, I'll tell you. I show up thinking, I'm in California. What could go wrong? Oh, it was cold. Corey, I know from working with you that you were very young when you had your first business. And that was what,
Yeah,
selling?
that's true. No, no, my first business was a window washing business.
Okay.
Actually, my first business was a landscape maintenance business in high school. And then I had post high school, that was just a summer gig a buddy and I did. And then post high school, I had a window washing business, and then a painting business. And then I was in the insurance business prior to college. I took a couple of years off before college. And then during college, I got into the corn selling. And I did that for a few years before I started the water hauling and oilfield service.
And then
So
you,
I was selling corn for the Jensen farms. I grew that to be the largest Tabor corn outfit in Calgary for a couple of years, and then was overtaken by one of my competition. He just grew like crazy. But we had 13 pickups out there selling corn, and then we had to augment it because corn didn't start till first week of August usually. end of July, and so we augmented it with cherries and soft fruit for called it the cherry truck from usually beginning of June. We'd start mid beginning to mid June, and then we'd get a 6 week run of cherries and fruit, and then we'd get a 5 to 6 week run of corn.
And then you started the water hauling business, is that correct?
Yeah, so in 1996, started the water hauling business. I think we started the corn business in 90, I want to say 93.
Okay.
And then we ran the corn business up until 2005, and then shut it down, and then sold the water hauling business in 2006, and then moved to California that same year.
Where you've had multiple businesses.
Yeah, I've had a few things in California. I went down there to start a hydro excavating business. Take what I'd seen here as a very lucrative. Water hauling is kind of the entry level oil field service, which I had a mid-sized company. It did okay, but you couldn't really charge great rates. And then hydro excavating was becoming really essential service in Alberta. You couldn't move, you couldn't dig within 10 feet of any kind of utility without it. And I saw the vision to actually convert that or take that technology to California, which didn't have it. The regulations weren't there requiring it, but California is very, you know, they're pretty high in regulations, as most people know. So they adapt or adopt regulations pretty readily. So I expected California to adopt it. Um, I didn't actually get it off the ground before the Great Recession. We got down there, kind of got the wheels rolling, got a shop rented, got, you know, equipment lined up and deposits on it and stuff. And then we had the Great Recession hit. So I kind of had to reinvent myself and started the dollar turned upside down and was stronger than the US dollar. So started exporting vehicles to Canada, which I did for a few
I've
years.
heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a lot of Canadians. Canada fared the Great Recession much better than the US. And a lot of my clients and friends in Canada wanted to get into buying real estate in the US because it had taken such a enormous drop. Um, 2006, May, June was the peak. Started to drop a little bit after that, but then with the 2008 financial crisis, it really took a drop. And so a lot of people wanted to get into the real estate business. So I became a real estate redeveloper, buying, rehabbing, and selling homes in the US, usually funded by Canadian investors. Did a lot of that in LA. You hear straight out of Compton. I had a home in Compton. I had homes in Inglewood and South Central. I kind of like to deal in the hood. Saw a lot of opportunity there, and it was funny to see a fat white guy roll up in his Escalade and step out, and there's nothing but colored folk all around, and cops would pull up and say, "Hey, you heard any strange noises?" And like what? Like a pop pop pop. Um, no, not in the last 10 minutes, but maybe an hour ago. Yeah, there was some pop 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 going on. Had squatters sitting in the houses. You'd remodel them. They'd look like a show home, and you'd show up, and there'd be squatters in there. It's pretty interesting experience. Then we had a portfolio in the Midwest, at 60 homes in the Midwest that we were working with and remodeling, disposing of for another group that bought them as a package deal and didn't know what to do with them. So we took them over, and then we did some of our own there. And then I got into the paper side of real estate and selling loans. Something you don't have in Canada is a secondary market for loans. So we'd sell non-performing debt on real estate that would be aged, and we buy it for pennies on the dollar and then work towards getting it performing or getting the people out and taking property back and then getting new homeowners in under a seller finance contract and then selling it as performing paper. So did that for a while and then back into had a gas station with a partner for 4 or 5 years too, about 3 years, 14 to 17. And then in 16, I got back into the real estate redevelopment, but instead of the slums, I was dealing with kind of the high-end
Mhm.
multi-million dollar homes in San Diego
And is
until
that when
COVID hit.
sorry, is that when you started attending masterminds, or when did you start being involved with going to masterminds?
You know, I started, I always tried to work on my education. So I did some real estate education in Canada through Whitney, Canada, before I even moved to the US. Wasn't a mastermind, it was more of a training. And then I started getting into the masterminds when I was in the note space, when I was in the non-performing loan space. I joined a mastermind. Um, that was huge for me. Really kind of got me to a next level, got me around people that were thinking more like me. You never want to be the smartest person in the room, and not to say that I'm smart, but a lot of people I just interact with didn't have the creativity or the experience or the guts to do a lot of the things I did. And so when you get into groups like this, you get around other entrepreneurs that, you know, make you look tame.
So did you get more value from the speakers at the masterminds or from being with like-minded people?
You know, both. I mean, really,
Hmm.
and depends on the mastermind. I mean, some masterminds were part of another. Um, there might be a breakout or mastermind day after an event. So you go to an event, and there'd be a lot of what I'd call a pitch fest. A lot of speakers selling their programs, their courses, and whatnot. And there's value in that too. In that element of the meetings, I always got more value of the networking, meeting with people, outside meetings in the hallway or in the hotel room. But then when you get into the actual mastermind, where your speaker really is typically just a facilitator. In a true mastermind, they're going to spend maybe 20-30% of the time, speaking. The rest of it's going to be implementation, roundtable exercises, these types of things, sharing with other members of the mastermind and brainstorming or learning from them.
Right. And so were your masterminds all in person, or did you do any on Zoom?
All the masterminds I was in were in person, but some of them had an element where they would have a Zoom meeting once a month. So you'd have like the last mastermind I was in just prior to COVID. I haven't been involved in a mastermind since COVID. Um, Although in my new industry in solar, I've been in some networking groups, but not a true mastermind. Um, they would have the in-person 2-3 day mastermind. Usually the format would be, a cocktail dinner, sunset cruise, whatever, just something social the first night as everybody got in, maybe on a Friday night. Saturday, Sunday would be the mastermind, and then everybody leaves Sunday evening. It's typically the way it would work with this last one. And then once a month, they would have the host or the facilitator would do more of a webinar, less interactive. And that was just his format.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but since COVID, I think a lot of different platforms obviously had to shift. One of my good friends from the first mastermind I was in, she became a really good friend, Deanna, and she was the organizer for the hosts of the mastermind. And I became friends with her and got invited to different uh, different events that she put on, and she had her own event company eventually, and then she worked for like the largest marketing event firm and in there or online event firm in the US, and I got to go to their 4,000 person events. And then they have a really high level mastermind, and things like that are just there's just a lot of great uh platforms and way to do it, but I know that they really had to pivot. And so one of the founders of that company started a just within, I want to say, days of COVID lockdowns, he started Epic, uh, earning profits in crisis. No, ethical profit in crisis. Epic. Roland Fraser, become a friend of mine, but he was one of the founders of Scalable and the War Room Mastermind and the online company as well. And that was more of a training, although I think he might have evolved into a mastermind as well. But yeah, a lot of people had to pivot. There was no
Mhm.
opportunity to meet for several months
Yeah.
in the US.
So I've never done an in-person mastermind. I've only done on Zoom, and I think some of that is because I live in such a small town. And the thought of driving regularly to somewhere where there'd be like-minded people to work with is a bit of a challenge. And of course, like so many business owners and entrepreneurs in a small town, you're scared to discuss very much. You can't brag about what went well. You don't want to whine to people about what's not working. You don't want to even discuss your bottom line. And so for me, the experience of being able to do it on Zoom and work with, and that time I was an accountant, so I was with other accountants and bookkeepers in the room, and we got to the point where we were brutally honest with each other. It was kind of frightening if you think about the information that we were sharing, not client information, but how we were growing our businesses and what was working and what wasn't. And the sharing that went on in that group was unbelievable. Oh, you have an operating procedure for that. Can you send me that? Oh, how do you do that? And it really worked out very well for us. And I would think that when you're in a big group, that's a bit harder to do because you're networking and meeting with more people, whereas this was a small, intimate group. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, my experience, like the last mastermind I was in was not niche focused, and like yours was in mostly, if I understand correctly, it was mostly bookkeepers and accountants. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So mine was more small business, medium businesses. I mean, there was one billionaire in the group, in the room. There was about 45, I would say, in that mastermind in regular attendance. Um, several millionaires and a billionaire and several, uh, just guys like me that were, again, far from the smartest guy in the room and really trying to learn as much as I could. Um, but that's a key thing, is the sharing, and you're expected. Like, you're expected to participate, and part of that participation is sharing. I mean, tears are shed, hugs are done. Like,
Yes.
and it's incredible. You get into a good mastermind, and like I remember this one. Honestly, I was really struggling at this point in my business. I was in 4 lawsuits. I was contemplating bankruptcy to protect myself from one of the lawsuits, plus just the way the business was going because of a failed partnership. And I was vulnerable, and the reception I got, the advice I got was key to allow me to even consider to develop and to build this.
Right.
I mean, I didn't realize then that I was going to do this, but I came out of that mastermind knowing that I could put my head down, I could clean up the mess and move forward and build something better than I've ever had. something that had more potential without all the challenges, all the expenses, all the capital costs, all the stress,
Yes.
everything that I had from pretty much all my previous businesses. And I was encouraged uh, by the host. He got vulnerable and shared a time when he was in the same position as me, and he found something that worked, and he said he just worked it hard and came out on top, and he's been on top ever since. So um I don't know that I would have had the strength or the vision to do this had I not been in that mastermind. I mean,
Isn't that the truth,
I think it
right?
was pretty
Yeah,
much ready to give up.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is so
And
true.
the people from all walks of life were there to support me. They would check in on me and how's it going and support me weeks and months after, and the last mastermind was in early January 2020, and then we had COVID 3 months later. But it it was the thing that allowed me to develop my next business plan and put me on the path
Yeah.
that I'm
Now,
on now.
yeah. So I met with you a few weeks ago, probably, I'm not sure, and they shared our cash flow club playbook, the first edition, which the new edition is coming out this week. So the Alberta edition, and I'll be happy to share that with you as well.
Exciting.
My thoughts are that, and Robin's thoughts, my partner's thoughts, is that we're going to use that playbook as a basis for coaching and masterminds. The coaching is obvious. We work one-on-one with a business, but to me, I can only teach or assist anybody to a certain degree because I don't know everything. But when we get other people, other business owners in the room, I really think that with that playbook, as the cash flow playbook, and then the other minds in the room, that we would have something truly unique. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you've got a really great book there, a really great workbook. It is a workbook. It's
Yes.
practical. It's not fluff. It's got some good, well written. The first edition that I saw, and I think, you know, depending on what you're trying to achieve, I think if you can put together a group of people that can share their experiences with related to the principles in the book,
Yep.
everybody will learn. Whether there's successes or failures, if you will. I hate to use the word failures, shortcomings. Um, those teach lessons as well. And so I think the book is fundamentals, and that's what everybody needs to start with. I mean, you taught me probably in 2003 that I need to focus on cash flow and worry more about getting that under control before I worried about growing other sides of my business. Um, it's it's essential. You can't do anything without that fundamentally. Um, and so I think it's brilliant to start there and to get people participating, sharing their experiences. That's what's going to help the next person in the room who's struggling with one thing, something somebody's benefit from.
I really believe that, because when all as a business owner you can think about is how to pay the next bill or where's the next job, until that cash is flowing a little bit, you can't grow, you can't put in the systems and procedures that you need. You're just sort of stuck going from one day to another, and stressing. We need to reduce the stress in business owners' lives, and we need to see them succeed. The fact that 20% of them survive the first year, 80% fail in their first year of business, like that's terrible.
Yeah, it really is. And that's, I mean, I'm sure there's 1,000 reasons for that. Let go into businesses unprepared,
Right.
uh, a lot of it is undercapitalization. I know that was always a problem. So there's a lot of finance, beyond the practical or the day-to-day operational finance that's in part of cash flow. I think there's a lot of fundamental business startup education that needs to be taught, and I think you could probably really help more people with that too. I know you've got some interest in helping people who are buying businesses, and you know I would even suggest that you look at people who are looking to start businesses.
Yeah.
Having some playbook or some guidelines for how to start or when you start. Stop before you start. These
Yeah,
types of things.
sometimes just wait a year, wait 2 years. But so many people are really good at what they do that they don't understand that to be successful in business, there's a lot more to it than just marketing your trade or running the corn truck well or whatever. It's difficult. You can tell that we're both in rural Alberta because we're having some freezing on the internet. So I think we probably should wrap this up while we can still say goodbye. Corey, would you come back another time and talk with us?
Absolutely, Linda. You know that you know, you're one of my favorite people in the world, and I take your call any day. Happy to happy to see your meet with you and talk to your people or your group anytime.
Yeah, we have people. Isn't that amazing? Okay, thanks so much, Corey, for joining us today, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right, take care, Linda.